In this episode of the Success Secret podcast, I'm joined with EksAyn Anderson to talk about how to successfully influence people. EksAyn has been seen on Forbes, Speaker Magazine, and various business blogs and podcasts. His books, The Key to the Gate, Principles and Techniques to Get Past Gatekeepers to the Decision Maker, and What I Want My Children to Know Before I Die, both sold internationally. But remember that success in business world does not matter if we don't have success at home. So that's a principle that EksAyn lives by. So these are the things that we are going to be talking about: how to have influence on people, and the importance of being a leader in self and in others. So welcome, EksAyn.
Thank you, Hussein. Thanks for having me on the show.
Great to have you here. So first of all, because this is the Success Secret podcast, I want to ask you, what does success means to you, and how do you see other people have certain misconceptions what the success is?
Oh, goodness, that's such a good question, Hussein. Thank you for asking. Success to me personally means you're doing the things that are most important, that are most meaningful um, in the world. And so for example, a lot of times people say, well, success can be if I make $1 million or I have a lot of success. But then a lot of people get to the top of the ladder and they find that they have relationships with their children or their spouse that's not ideal, and they realize that their ladder was leaning on the wrong wall. So success for me is saying, let's find out what's really, really real, what's really important, and then pursue that. And so if you make a ton of money but you don't have good relationships with those you love, I don't think that's success, frankly.
Yeah, that's very important because it starts with ourselves and then spreads out to the bigger circle, family, friends, and community, and then goes beyond that, which is very important. So now, speaking of success, we cannot have success like by ourselves. Like we cannot call success. We are success by itself doing everything alone. We have to have some influence to other people. We have to have some people influence us, right? So it is both ways. It's a two-way street, I guess, right? So first of all, can we define what do we mean by influence? Like, because if we talk about influence, some might would say like someone with so big social media following. So what do we mean by influence?
Well, the type of influence I'm talking right now is the type of influence is interpersonal influence. Let me tell you what I mean. Near where I live, there's a business, and this business is always busy. They're always busy. They have customers coming all the time. And there's one reason that this business is successful, and it's because of it's actually a car business. It's a mechanic, but there's a reason that it's successful. It's because of one man named Mike. And this guy named Mike is so awesome. Let me tell you how I met him, first of all. Mike, I had a problem with my car, and I went to another mechanic, and this mechanic told me it was going to cost me $1,500 to fix this problem with my car. And there was something about that interaction that made me want to get a second opinion. So I went down to Mike. He was close to where I lived. I went down to Mike and I asked him, I said, how much is this going to cost? And he said, $10. So I had one mechanic tell me 1,500. Mike had told me $10. And I was surprised. It was only $10. That's almost nothing to get a car fixed in the area where I live. And so I took it to Mike. I paid him $10 and the car worked great. Well, later on I had another problem. And of course I took the car down to Mike, and this time it was much more than $10. He said, hey, it's gonna cost, I can't remember the amount. Let's just say it was $500, maybe somewhere around that time. He told me he'd have it done by the end of the day. But here's the thing: he fixed the car. Um, he called me about 5 hours earlier. So if he said it was going to be done by 5, he called me around lunchtime and said, hey, the car's done. When I got down there to pay for it, instead of being $500, it was like $450. And again, I don't remember the exact amounts, but it was less than what he said. Well, what is it that makes Mike? Um, Let me tell you this. I should read some of these reviews for you. And I just want to see if I can pull this up for you. Mike has people drive. I looked him up on Google and I saw his Google reviews, and he has 75-star reviews. And some of them say things like this: I drive over 400 miles to take my car to Mike. Some people say Google should let me give him 10-star reviews. Some people say, hey, this guy's going straight to heaven when he dies. How do you get enough interpersonal influence that people will drive 400 miles to let you fix their car? How do you get enough interpersonal influence that people will beg Google to allow you to give them 10-star reviews? How do you get enough influence where people will go to you for 20 years and never go anywhere else? If I read these reviews to you, you'd be like, wow, this is crazy. And there's principles that he aligns with. So it's a really good question, and we can talk about it. But that's the kind of influence we're talking about. We're talking about what is it that makes people want to follow you? Not necessarily on social media, but just in real life. How do I get people to want to do business with me? And
Definitely, that's very important. Like what you mentioned, that I think one of the reasons are maybe him being authentic, right? Because like we know, for example, in the first example you mentioned, when he charged you $10, while the other guy charged you 1,500, I think, right? So
yeah,
that's a big gap. Like uh, there, there
and
must
I've paid.
they must be putting gold somewhere to fix the car there. But uh, the authenticity of the person maybe shows also like credibility, honesty, these kind of things that are combined together that maybe form the influence for them, that they are trustworthy people, that they are not going to like go left and right to serve you. They are to the point and they tell you exactly what it is need to be done. And because generally people want to go from A to Z, not go through the process. They want the end result. Like they want the resolution, right?
That's right. And I love what you said right there, who's saying what happened is the reason people go to Mike is because they trust him. They trust him. Like I looked up his reviews. I'm actually pulled them up right here. I'm going to read a couple to you. So this man is going straight to heaven when he dies. The most honest mechanic I've ever met. Would never go anywhere else. Here's the next review. Mike is absolutely excellent to work with. I drove over 400 miles to have him take care of my repair. Great man. Here's the next one. Google should allow me to give this review 10 stars. I've been coming to this shop for over 6 years now. Mike is the absolute best. It's becoming increasingly difficult and rare to find a mechanic you can completely trust who has a passion for helping people. Mike's that and more. Here's the next one. I've been going to the shop Mike works at for 20 years. We have 4 cars. He remembers all of them, all their histories. They're honest, fair, timely, easily to communicate with. I'm grateful to have a mechanic I can trust completely now. Here's the interesting thing. When you look through all of these reviews, there's a common theme. Most of the reviews have to do with honesty, trust, or fairness. In other words, they're like, I can trust him. He's not going to try to charge me $1,500 when he can do it for 10. Now, sometimes I paid him thousands of dollars, but I know he's giving me a fair deal because I can trust him. And I think that's one of the things that people like. It's this ability to trust, and you can't do it unless you're being honest. People think that, oh, you can kind of cheat and not be honest. The truth is, if you're not honest, people will get it and they don't trust you. But Mike is completely honest. Here's what I found. Of the 75-star reviews, 46 of them mentioned either some derivative of the word honest, trust, or fair. It was the most common theme in all the topics. And if you think about this, Hussein, nobody's got to write a review, much less a positive review. And Mike doesn't even ask for reviews on Google. He doesn't ask people to go for reviews. They do it on their own. But when people write reviews about Mike, the thing that seems to inspire people more than anything else is trust, honesty, and fairness. And there was even some research out of Cornell University that found that when managers perceive that their boss has integrity, which is, he's being fair, walking their talk, that the profitability of the business went up by 13%. Just having honesty actually makes you more money.
Mm, definitely, definitely, because we have to align with our authenticity, purpose, and serving the community around us. Because if you are not honest with the community around you, who is going to come to your shop in general? Yes, maybe there is someone who's 300 miles away or whatever, but these people are rare. Not like most people are not going to make that trip. But generally, you want to serve the, for example, in this type of scenario or this example, you want to know and serve the community around you. So, how important do you think is a business owner should have certain concrete principles that they follow?
So important. It's the most important thing. If you have a business and you're not following principles, people are going to get it and they won't trust you. So the fact that Mike's just honest, people trust him and they'll drive from all over the place, 400 miles to get to him. Now, let me talk about one other thing that he does. So once you've aligned with principles and and people trust you because you're aligning with them. The next piece, in my view, one of the things that Mike does is, well, let me put it this way, Hussein. We have in life what are called expectations. This is what I expect. But a lot of times life in reality comes in lower. So I expect this, but I'm only getting this. Well, what's the distance between a high expectation and reality that's coming in lower? I call this frustration. Okay. If there's a word for it, it's called frustration. Now, if you want to influence people, you don't want them to be frustrated with you. And so you've got to keep these lines together. You've got to keep your expectations and what actually happens to you at the same level, at least. But one of the things Mike does is he actually flips the lines. Look at this. He makes it so that people's reality is better than they expect. And then this distance is no longer frustration. This distance is now called delight. And this is how he does it. He'll say, hey, I'll have your car done by tomorrow at noon. But then he calls you up at tomorrow at 8 a.m. or the same day at 5 p.m. And he goes, hey, I've already got it done. So he makes your expectation here, but then he makes his reality better. He'll say to you, hey, it's going to be $500. But when you show up, he says, you know what? I found a way to get it lower. It's only $450. So he charges less than he told him. He gets it done before and he charges less. So now people they know he's honest, but they also know that their reality is going to be better than they expect. And he does this all the time. And so how can you, or how can any of your listeners here who are listening, make people's reality better than they expect? If you can do that consistently and get people to trust you by just being honest, your ability to influence people in a negotiation, in a sale, if you're trying to sell to a government, to a business, or to an organization, that's huge. So if you can imagine, if you have a pyramid, the bottom is you got to have trust. The next thing is you've got to build the relationship. So the bottom's you've got to have trust, but the next level up is I got to build the relationship. One of the best ways to do that is to exceed people's expectations. One more comment on that. He's saying, I know of a repair guy. He's a repair guy in my area. And he says, if I tell people I'm going to get the repair done by Thursday, and then I get it done on Wednesday, everybody's thrilled. They're happy. If I tell people I'm going to get the repair done on Tuesday, and I get it done on Wednesday, everybody's mad at me. In both situations, the repair happened on Wednesday. The only thing that changed was, what was the expectation? Did I expect it by Thursday or did I expect it by Tuesday? So you have to under promise and over deliver. And that works in your relationship with your children. It works in your relationship with businesses. It works in relationships, any relationship. If you can make people's reality better than they expect, then they're delighted with you. Now, on the other hand, if you make you put their expectations up here and you're not quite delivering, then they're frustrated with you. And that's huge.
Exactly. Like you mentioned something very important here, which is like over delivering, which is something that in the example, he was delivering in different ways. Early, early to give people their early cars, or than he promised, and also then some kind of maybe discount. So the over deliver, not just in a way, but in more than one way, two ways, maybe more. So that's very important, that you want to serve people in a way that they do not see certain things coming, certain good things coming their way, which is a great thing that they would like I mentioned, it would be a delight and it would be like some kind of a surprise. Like, okay, great. That yeah, right. That's very. But do you think that there are some certain positive or negative sides for influence? Like, do you think certain things that can happen, or some people do, or business owners do that can be negative, not just
Yeah,
positive?
yes, absolutely. So let me tell you what the research shows. This is a great question, Hussein. You're a great host. Thanks for asking such good questions on this.
Thank you.
So they say that if you can think of behaviors, let me back up for just a second and answer your question. If you think of a behavior as a seed that you would plant in the ground, and attention is like water. So I have a water bottle. If I water the behaviors I want to see grow with attention, here's the problem. In our relationships, a lot of times we're watering the behaviors we don't want to see grow with attention. So let me tell you what I mean. Have you ever seen a parent? The parent says something like this: "I can't believe you stayed out too late and you didn't make your bed and you didn't put your you didn't clean your room like I asked you." They give all this attention to what the child's doing wrong. Well, managers do this too. They tell everybody, the employee, what he's doing wrong, what he's doing wrong, what he's doing wrong. But the issue with that is you're actually making it more likely that that behavior will occur. The research shows, Hussein, that if you give attention to the good behaviors, those behaviors, it actually, not only will they grow, but the bad behaviors start to wither. And so it's so much more effective to be positive, to tell people what they're doing right, rather than trying to shame them and tell them what they're doing wrong. Now, occasionally you have to address some things. If you do have to address some things, you want to address the negatives in private and the positives in public. Praise in public. If you need to criticize, you can criticize in private, but you want to do the positive in public and praise the behavior you want to see happen.
So that's very important what you're talking about. It could be about a choice, like we could go to the talking about the negatives. For example, in the example of a manager, we can show the negatives for the people and we can show the positives. And your example, yes, this is the problem. Like in a lot of jobs, like they always criticize the employee for the bad things, even if it's just one mistake, for example, and there's like 100 good things happened. Like it's not like maybe sometimes it's not even mentioned, so they make a choice to show the bad things, the bad stuff, and neglect the good stuff, which is not a good thing. Like these people, this person would not be a leader, in my opinion, right? And also, it would be a bad influence for the people around them.
That's right. People gravitate towards positivity. They gravitate towards, um, like, let me just give you one example. I was sitting in a high level director's office in New York. I'm going to tell you what happened. Let me tell you how this happened. I'd sent this guy an email because I wanted to try to sell a product to this guy in New York, and he ignored my email. He didn't say, "Hey, we're not interested," or "Hey, somebody else handles this." He just completely ignored it. Well, I called back in maybe several days later, and I talked to his. Well, let me back up even further. I'm sitting in this high level director's office in New York, and he looks at me and he says, "You are the only salesperson I've ever let into my office." Now, I think he might have meant about the particular product I'm saying, but that's not what he said. He said, "You are the only salesperson I've ever let into my office." And let me tell you what happened. I sent him this email. He ignored me. I called up to talk to him several days later, maybe a week later or so. And who answered the phone? It was his secretary. Okay. And his secretary, I said, "Can I speak with Bob?" She said, "He's unavailable." By the way, they're always unavailable, just so you know. and I said, "Well, you know what? Maybe I could do what I could do is resend the email that I sent a while ago and copy it to you. Would that be okay?" And she said, "Well, sure." And I don't know who said, have you ever heard someone on the phone? You can almost hear them smiling, like they have a positive attitude. You can just almost hear their smile, even though you can't see them. Well, she was one of these people you could kind of hear that. And I noticed it. We started talking just a little bit. And I said, "You know what? Thank you so much for being so friendly and courteous. I'm on the phone all day long. I just appreciate you just being so friendly and courteous." And she said, "Hey, thanks." And while she was on the phone, I pulled up the email that I'd sent before and I typed really fast. And I said something like this, Hussein. I said, "Dear Bob, I had the opportunity of speaking with Janice. She was very professional and helpful. I think she's an asset to your team. By the way, I'm going to be in New York on these days." She's still on the phone with me. And I sent this email to her boss. Remember, it has a compliment about her on the first line, something nice. And I copied her on the email. And I said, I sent the email and I said, "Hey, did that email come through?" And she said, "Let me check." There was a little pause. And then she said, "Hey, that email came through great." And then she paused again and she goes, "Hey, thanks for the compliment." And I said, "Well, I meant it. Thanks for being so positive." Well, here's the interesting thing, Hussein.
Yeah.
Fast forward, I'm back in this office. He's just told me I'm the only salesperson he's ever let into his office. This is what he said to me next. He said, "You're the only salesperson I've let into my office. The reason you're here is because you were nice to my secretary." He said, "I talk to my secretary more than I talk to my wife." Some of these people don't get it. Well, here's the thing. That's when you water behavior. Now, there are some people who call up and they try to be rude to the secretary, or they try to act like they're high and mighty and the other guy's high and mighty. And they say, "Now, who are you? And what is your title?" And try to be rude. Doesn't work. You gotta catch people doing something right. And when you do that with your people you work with, it got me this appointment with a high level director in New York. It works with our children, works with our spouses, works with people we know. If you want to be influential, catch people doing something right. And then, like you said, surprise them in some way, make their expectations, their reality better than they expect.
Mm.
And if you do that and you're trustworthy, when you speak, your words will have more power because they'll want to follow you.
Yeah, definitely. That's amazing example. Like generally when some people talk to secretaries, they are just like, come on, give me the one that I want to talk to and just get out of the way, something like that. So
Right. That's right.
so throughout that, what is the worst advice that you have received in regards to influence?
The worst or the best? Did you say the worst?
Yeah, worst.
Well, I'll tell you this. I heard a sales trainer tell me, or not tell, I've heard of sales trainers, let's just put it this way, that say if you can't get past the secretary, you should act a little indignant, say, "Now, who are you and what is your title?" And act like you're high and mighty and the CEO is high and mighty and the secretary is just a little bump on the road. Totally disagree with that. The truth is you've got to treat everybody like they're royalty. You don't treat the worst, the best advice. Let me go with the best. The best advice would be to treat everyone like you're their royalty, even people who, some people want to treat some people, they're really important and some people are not important. That's not true. Treat everyone like they're a king or a queen, and you'll see doors open for you. So yeah, I've heard a lot of bad advice where people say to be mean to people or something. I was like, no, you don't need to do that. It's
Yeah,
not going to help.
exactly. Definitely, it's not going to help. And it's great that we should always treat people in general, whomever they are, the same because they are eventually, it's just what they have as work, as positions, as presidents, or whatever they are. These things are just positions, not who they are, which is eventually a human being. So what happens to me, what runs through your body will runs through anyone's body the same. One day we will not be here, so we have the same story at the end. It's not like anything different. So it's the same. So that's amazing. So do you have some certain tools, resources, or books that you would recommend?
Oh, certain books. Oh, goodness. One of the best books out there is, if we're talking about this, I have two recommendations. The Seven Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey is a great one, very famous. But to learn the principles of influence, and this could be used for business. There's a parenting book called The Power of Positive Parenting by Glenn Latham. But I'll tell you, it's a parenting book, but it's a great business book. If you can take the same principles that they teach in that Power of Positive Parenting and apply it to your business, you'll do great. It's probably a better business book than it's as good a business book as it is a parenting book, but it's a great book, both of them.
Definitely. Of course, there are certain things that apply because if whether we are business owners, entrepreneurs, parents, whomever, we want to have an impact and have an influence on other people in a positive way. So that's the principles would generally apply to any situation or any position that you are in. So that's very important. So, Excel, where can people learn more about you and what you do and get your books?
Oh, well, they could go to there's a few different sites. You could go to EksAyn.com, which is just my first name, EKSAYN.com. You could also go to xfactoredge.com, which is more of the sales. If you're wanting to influence and be a good influencer or negotiator in sales. Then if they're speaking, I have another website, which is eksinfluence.com. Any one of those, they can find me there. And Hussein, you've been a great host. You asked great questions. Thank you for having me on your show.
Thank you very much for joining me, and you provided great insights into influence that are very important to any humans would apply whether in their business or life or even like parents. Generally, anyone can apply, and they are very important because eventually we are should treat each other in a same level way and with dignity and with trust and authenticity to show that so people can come to us at ease and have certain business with us at ease. Like you don't have to force anything. The days are of being who you are, I guess, and the influence will come if you show other people that you respect them and you deal with them as they deserve and maybe more. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for Hussein. It's been an honor to be on your show. Thank you for having me.